Hi, my name is Mallery Jane, and today we are going to be doing these cozy winter doodles with basic shapes. Now, I actually have this PDF printout for you to be able to see how I actually kind of go through drawing these, because today we are just going to do watercolor with them, but I wanted you to be able to see how to draw these on your own. And so I created this fun little winter doodle packet. It is completely free. You can grab it at the link below, and you can kind of see how I start out with circles for our snowman or our wreath, and then kind of build upon that. And so I've done that with each of these. And in the very back of the PDF, you are going to see also I put them on like a little cute holiday tag. You're welcome to kind of print those out, color them in, do whatever you'd like with them as well. I just wanted to create this as a huge thank you for all of you that support and follow along and leave wonderful comments and all of those things. My students as well, that just really make my year magical all of the time because of you. And so I wanted to just do something for you. So thank you so much. I, again, just appreciate all the support. So let's dive in and start painting these together. One last thing I'm gonna say is I do have my biggest sale of the year that is going to be happening November 22nd through the 30th. And so all of my courses are 20% off. And again, this time of year, I get a lot of people also asking if they can gift my courses. And yes, I do have a really nice feature on the website that allows you to like click gift, and you can put in their name and all of that kind of stuff so that it goes to the person you're wanting to gift it to. I also have like a little tutorial on there as well, because sometimes it can be confusing giving like a digital gift. So that is also another option in case you are looking for that perfect holiday gift for someone that is into watercolor or drawing as well. I have my Sketching 101 course. So now let's dive in. Again, I've kind of already drawn mine on my watercolor paper. And so I'm using Arches 120-pound cold press paper. I've got some paints with me. Honestly, this is just gonna be fun, so I don't want you to worry about too much like specifics on what colors I'm using. I'll say them, but don't get too caught up. I want you just to have fun painting this how you'd like it as well. This is just for me to also just have fun kind of painting this with you guys, but it's not gonna be a whole lot of like teaching or anything like that. I'll just kind of let you know what I'm doing along the way. So with something like this, when I have a lot of different items, I say I'm not going to teach, but I don't think I know how not to teach, so I probably will be teaching. But first off, I'm going to do a light erase on it just because my pencil lines are a little bit dark. And again, with watercolor, if you don't do erase at the beginning, then you will definitely see those at the end. And the only reason I'm doing this a little bit lighter, especially kind of on the snowman and the roof of the house and then the tree, is because that snow is so light in value. I don't want those pencil lines to be really harsh. And so the main two times I erase is if it's clouds in the sky or snow on the ground, because again, it kind of takes away from that softness and fluffiness of clouds or snow. So that's kind of why I'm doing that. All right, now that I erase that, and when I'm tracing onto my watercolor paper, so I kind of drew these out and then traced it, I use a 2H pencil. The lead is just a little bit harder on it, so it's a little bit lighter. It doesn't smear as much as a softer lead. Brushes, real quick, I have a 4 Escoda, this is the Perla round, and then I have an 8, and this is the Ebony Splendor from Creative Mark, and again, that's a round as well. So probably gonna use just these two brushes, keep it simple. And when I'm painting something like this, which is what I was starting to talk about at the beginning, is I try and figure out what I can use throughout. Like if I have a color, I'm gonna put it throughout instead of just focusing on one at a time. So what I mean by that is right now I'm grabbing ultramarine blue, a little bit of cobalt blue, a lot of water, because this is gonna be my snow color, kind of where the shadows are a little bit. So a lot of water. And now I'm gonna come in and put this wherever I have snow on any of my objects. Also, if this gets up into the pine tree part, does not matter at all because that's going to be so dark in value. So you almost could literally just like paint through on that. I really don't like painting around unless I have to. So the only spots I'm being really careful with are on the edges. But the middle of that tree can be kind of painted through. So I did that. So now I go and I look, where else do I have snow? I have snow on my snowman, my cute little snowman. So I'm gonna come and do a little bit of a shadow on the left side of him. I had to think about it. I was like, is that the left side? And then I'm gonna rinse my brush, kind of soften that. Keep rinsing and softening. Now I'm also going to take that same and do some on our snowy roof. I'm also going to do the snowflakes. Okay, so I kind of got all the snowy parts right now painted, at least for that first layer. So now I can move into another color, and you can see how just that one color filled in quite a bit on here. And so I think I'm gonna hold off on doing my green on my wreath, because when I get that green, I can also do my pine tree. So I think right now I'm gonna go into maybe my envelopes and kind of work on those. So I'm gonna use yellow ochre, little bit of ultramarine blue, kind of tone that down so it's a nice little envelope color. Okay, and then I'm gonna mix right into this a little bit of lemon yellow. Because now we can start using this for our bell. So whenever I have colors on my palette, I really try and mix into them when I'm creating a new color, because I think it just helps with adding color harmony to your objects and helps them look a little bit more cohesive, because they all kind of then have like, it's almost like mother color. I've talked about that a little bit before, where like you mix one color into all your mixtures. It's kind of like a little bit of a twist on using that technique to also achieve color harmony. All right, now that that is done, I'm gonna use that to do the yellow on these lights, colored lights. So I'm probably gonna want like red, yellow, green, blue, red, yellow, green, blue, red, yellow. I was trying to think of like what pattern I wanted. That's actually more organized than what I normally am with doing those lights. Usually I'll just randomly like dot it down, and then it's not in an actual pattern. It's just whatever. All right, now that is done. Oh, I could also use that for the flame. And then I'm gonna do a little dot of orange at the bottom. While it's wet, that kind of helps it spread. And I might just dab that just a little bit. Yeah, looks good. And then I'm gonna go back into this yellow ochre. Grab a little bit of this blue we have out. Tone that down just a little bit. And I'm just gonna put a little bit of a line on this side of the candle. And then I'm gonna rinse my brush and just kind of soften that. It's just a very light value. Okay, now that's done. Let's see, where can we move to next? Let's maybe do, oh, I forgot the snow on the ground underneath our little wintry cabin. Same with my snowman too. Okay, that looks good. All right, well, let's see. I think at this point I'm going to dry this really quick because everything is a little bit wet. And so if it's a little bit wet, that's where you run into blooms and stuff that starts to, when you do that second layer, they'll start to either mix together or create blooms. And with that second layer, we want everything to be completely dry so that it just kind of rests on top instead of blending in with that first layer. Okay, I'm still using my 8 round brush. I'm gonna grab my Hooker's Green. Some ultramarine blue. A little bit of cad red to tone that down. The complement of green. Okay, now I'm gonna come in and get this pine tree. Okay, now that that is done, I'm gonna use this same green and just kind of lay that in on my wreath as well. So with the wreath, notice I did really kind of jagged strokes on the edging just to get that look of branches and the needles and all that kind of stuff kind of showing through. And so now I'm gonna let that dry, and then I'm gonna go into and start, well, actually, while I have the green, let's get some green on our lights over here. So I was gonna do green right here. And then I'm thinking on the envelopes, maybe doing just like the little bit of red kind of on the edging. So I'm gonna grab cad red. This is all, again, just how I'm choosing to paint it. You can paint these however you'd like. Oh wait, before I do that, I don't wanna do that yet. I wanna do a little bit of a shadow on those envelopes. So I'm gonna grab my yellow ochre again, a little bit of ultramarine blue, too much, got a little too dark on me. And then because there's extra envelopes like underneath a pile, I need to kind of have a little bit of a shadow under here. And so that's what I'm doing right now. And then I'm also going to do a little bit of a shadow underneath the actual envelope. Well, the whole thing is an envelope, the flap of the envelope. Okay. That's good. And then I'll come back in a little bit and add that red because that has to dry now. And then I'll probably use red too, I think, for the bow that's kind of wrapped around it, holding them. Or twine, maybe a dark brown or green. I mean, really, this is all, that's what's fun about this is you can just have so much fun with the different colors on here. Okay, I'm gonna paint this cabin red. I just think it sounds fun. So I'm using my Cad Red, a little bit of alizarin crimson in there maybe. Maybe a little bit of ultramarine blue. Kind of make it a little bit more of like a deeper red. And then I'm gonna go and paint that. I did switch to my 4 round brush for this because it's a little bit more detailed with these windows. Okay, now I'm gonna use this same red and I'm gonna put it on the bow up for my bell. And again, trying to use just like those colors that you're using throughout, not only mixing into them, but then using them in other pieces, I think helps it look a little bit more cohesive. Also, you probably could use a smaller size brush than even a 4 for some of this stuff. I just have no patience, so I really don't use smaller brushes because it takes so much more time to paint things in. So mostly me using big size brushes is because I have no patience and I want to paint it in as quick as I can, because I want to just like move on to the next layer and to keep going. See, look at me. I start talking and I painted that red and that should definitely have been blue. So let's do this. We'll dab it off. I don't know. Red is usually one of the worst ones to try and get off. So we'll see how this goes. I think I just messed up by 1. Yeah, it should have been right here. And then right here. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is rinse out my brush, and then when you get a color you don't want on your paper and you have to kind of try and erase it, add just a little bit of water, but make sure your brush is completely cleaned out. A little bit of water to try and kind of take that off. But again, red is not a great color to have to lift. Some colors lift a lot easier than others, and it's just kind of like their staining properties, and red's just a really hard one. But you know, I think because we're doing blue on top, it'll be okay. I'm not gonna stress too much about it. Okay, we're still using reds. I'm probably gonna come do this bow as well before kind of then taking a break, letting it kind of dry before working onto that next layer. Maybe I'll do a little more Cad Red into this bow just to make it a little bit different so that the bows have a little variety in them, since the bow itself is kind of different. I also think the brighter red on this one looks a little bit nicer with the green, and the muted red on the bell looks a little bit better with the gold. But again, this is all just personal preference. Okay, perfect. That is good for the bows. Now I'm going to let it all kind of dry before I move into some more layers and starting to add those details. All right, now that this is completely dry, I'm gonna kind of come in and start adding a little detail by just going a little bit darker in value. So real quick, if you're new to value, value is really how light to dark your color is. And so right now I usually do my first layer a little bit lighter. This is from the Watercolor 101 PDF booklet that I give in the course, but it's a great way just to see that with value, the more water you use, the lighter your value will be. So that's what I do with my first layers. And then as I go on to those second, third, and final layers with the detail, I get darker in value. And so you're gonna see how I'm gonna do that now with the snow. I'm even gonna go a little bit darker. So I'm gonna get my cobalt blue, a little bit of ultramarine blue, and now I'm gonna add a little bit of a darker value on a little bit of the edging of this snow. And then I'm gonna do the same thing with our snowman. A little bit of like a shadow underneath him or her. And then add a little bit of water to your brush just to kind of blend that, soften that in. And then I'm also gonna add a little bit of this darker value to our roof. I'm also adding just a little bit of that darker blue into my snowflakes as well. So when you have a light value and a dark value together on the same object, it really just helps create a little bit more dimension and makes it look a little bit more like it's 3D instead of flat. And just by adding a light value and a little bit of a darker value, that's it. And so after I add these onto the snowflakes, I'm not gonna touch those anymore. And since I have this blue, I'm actually going to use that for my lights. And then now I'm going to go and I'm going to paint this little bit on the candlestick. So I'm going to use my Queracron Gold, or now I think, so this is a Winsor Newton color, and I think they switched it now to deep gold, but it's a color that I absolutely love. So I didn't even mix anything into it. And you can see kind of how nice and kind of vibrant that gold is. Like it looks like gold, even though it's really just like a really kind of vibrant yellow. Now I'm gonna use, let's use that same color, and then I'm gonna mix a little bit of my yellow ochre into it and a little bit of, that was too much, so I'm gonna put that to the side. A little bit of ultramarine blue, a little bit of alizarin crimson. So I'm kind of getting like a darker gold color, and I'm gonna kind of put that on my bell. Again, because we're just coming in now and adding a darker value, and that's gonna help create so much more dimension, because right now everything looks pretty flat. And so that's usually what I want for my first layer, or even the first two layers. And then when I get to the third final layers, then I'm starting to kind of build up the dimension by adding in this darker value where the shadows are on everything. So I kind of just lightly outline it on almost, and then I just come back with water and I kind of soften it in some spots. Some spots I'll just leave it. And I think that's all I'm gonna do on the bell. Call that good. I'm gonna move on to, let's do the hat on our snowman. So I'm just gonna take my, I think this is my, it's not ivory black. I think it's Payne's gray. Whatever kind of blackish you wanna use. I'm gonna use a little ultramarine blue in there, a little bit of alizarin crimson. I just like that it kind of gives it a little more life by adding in those colors, because I really try not to use just black out of the palette. So if I do, then I still mix in those colors into it. And usually it's always those colors. It's always ultramarine blue and alizarin crimson. I'm gonna also do the mouth, and I'm gonna do the eyes, the buttons. If you don't want to do this with a paintbrush, because I know these are very detailed and tiny, just use a black pen or gel pen or anything like that, and you don't have to have that stress. And then last but not least, I need some black for the wire, for the lights. When you're doing kind of a thin line like that, if you press lighter, so if you apply just a little bit of pressure, not too much pressure, it helps your line stay thin. A thin and thick line is all about the pressure that you're applying. Okay, I think that's done. And oh, I am gonna use black, I think, for the windows on the house, the little cabin. Yeah, that looks good. And I chose to leave just a little bit of white around those windows, but you can tell it's not a perfect amount of white on those windows. Like some I covered in almost all of it. I just, when I'm doing something like that, I don't get too caught up in like making it perfect, because I think there's a lot that goes into just letting it be kind of loose like that and letting it be more random with how they were filled in. I think it just adds to the overall, like giving it variety instead of making them all exactly the same, especially with windows. When they start to get all the same, they get really repetitive and a little bit boring actually to look at. Okay, I'm grabbing my red and I'm just going to do this bow in red. Okay, I was gonna like do little dashes on the outside of the envelope, but now that I've done that, I actually don't think I need any more on there. So I'm gonna keep that like that. But now that I've got this red and I kind of added a little bit more into it, I am gonna come up here to this bow. And again, we're just adding this darker value so that this is no longer looking flat. Getting some dimension in here. Now I'm going to rinse my brush and I'm going to kind of blend some of this in. That looks pretty good. I'll probably come back with one final layer of red on that, but that's a good kind of second layer. And then I'm going to add a little bit of alizarin crimson, ultramarine blue. For this bow, I wanted a little bit darker too. And I think that's all I'm gonna do on that bow. I don't need to come in with another layer. I think it looks pretty good like that. So I'm gonna leave that. And then kind of now just going to the, you know, wherever I feel like is kind of last that I haven't painted in. So I've got my snowman's arms. So I'm gonna grab yellow ochre, a little bit of ultramarine blue, little red, and then I'm gonna grab some orange to do his cute little nose. Now the scarf on snowmen's, I'm always like, I don't know what to do because there's so many options. You could do stripes on it, you could do plaid, you could just do plain, and what color, like the amount of options with the scarf, always like, I'm like, I don't know. I do think I'm gonna do his hat little thing red. I feel like that's very traditional, and I do want that to be nice and bright. So I'm gonna paint that in. And I still have to figure out what to do for the scarf. Let's do, I think I'm gonna do, I don't know. Do have a lot of reds, a lot of greens. Maybe my goldish yellow, even though I know there's the bell on there. I think I'm gonna use my like lemon yellow and quinacridone gold or deep gold. Yeah, I kind of like how bright that is. Okay, and then let's see, we're getting towards the end. I think I'm gonna do a little bit of smoke in there, so I'll just grab that black mixture I kind of had over here. Just add a little bit to the edging. Still got to do the chimney, I just noticed that. And then again, I just kind of outline and then come back with my brush and add a little bit of water in there to kind of just soften it. Oh, my greens, we got to come back into the greens. So let's grab whatever green mixture you had, and we're going to get a little bit darker with it. So I'm going to add a little more ultramarine blue, a little bit of alizarin crimson in there. Once you've got that dark mixture up, then we just want to come in and, again, adding this other layer of like a dark value in here just helps break up the first layer, gives it a little bit of dimension. And it's a simple thing to do. I think that's why I love it so much, because sometimes, not sometimes, a lot of times everyone likes to say you're either talented with art or you're not, and it really is just a skill like anything else, like learning to cook, learning to play an instrument, learning to ski, you know, and any of those things that you learn. It's very much the same, because there's, I'm trying to think of the right word. There's like an order and a system to do things. And once you kind of know those little tips and tricks and frameworks, I guess is kind of a good word I like to use sometimes. Once you know those frameworks, you repeat them over and over and over. Just like, you know, with probably cooking, once you know how to make a roux for your sauce, like you can create that any time you want and change it up and make it different. I feel like art is very similar to that. However, that is one thing in cooking I am not good at yet. I love to cook and I can do a lot of things, but making roux, I'm still not good at. Okay, now that I've done second layer on almost all of this stuff, kind of added in some dimension, we're at the final like last 10% where it's like, okay, what is left to do on here? And I think what I'm gonna do is add a little bit of a shadow onto this candlestick right here just by grabbing like the paint that's on my palette. And so I'm just kind of gonna get a darker gold-ish color in here. Oops, I just dripped right on my cabin. And then I'm gonna just add that in just to one side of this candle. Again, just gives it a little more dimension. You know, is that dry? I'm also gonna use that a little bit into the scarf. Like that. And then I'm gonna use a little bit of orange into that and add a little darker shadow underneath the nose. So this is why it's called the last 10%, because you can see there isn't a lot of paint happening right now. Like these marks that I'm making is very thin and small and not taking up a lot of space on the paper, but it adds a lot. And so that last 10% is fun because you see the results at the end of all of that hard work with the layers before, which this is, I think, taking me probably 45 minutes or so. And you don't really see it looking amazing until that last 10%. And I think that's really hard with beginners is they don't realize that starting out when they're painting or drawing that there's an ugly phase, and it doesn't matter how good you are with anything like that it's not an ugly phase. It's just the foundational stages of the drawing and the painting don't necessarily look amazing because they're not there yet. You haven't put in the layers and you haven't built it up. You haven't added the values. And so that's where hopefully watching this, you're able to see that comes really just at the end. And so stick with it and enjoy the process. It is a fun process. I absolutely love doing it. And it's because I trust in the process and knowing that last 10%, it's all gonna come together and it's gonna be okay. And that's because I've done it so much and have trained myself now to trust the process and to not get frustrated so that I get to the end. Okay, last but not least, I'm going to add just a little bit more dimension onto this house. Again, it's just little tiny details. So all I'm gonna do is just go a little bit darker underneath the roof line. Oh, and I guess I have a white door over here. I also need my chimney. I did remember that. Okay, my door might go kind of yellowy, only just to kind of keep that same color scheme going. Now I need to let that dry so that then I can do the little windows on there. I might add a little more yellow into that door. Yeah. Okay, gotta let that dry and then I'll add in the windows on there. I'm gonna add a little bit of this dark red that I kind of made up onto just this bow right here. Gotta make sure that's dry. Okay, that looks good. Now you can kind of see the different parts of that bow in there. That's good, 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 good. There's so much going on in this one, so I'm trying to just triple check everything. And I think we're gonna call it good. I'll dry this real fast just so I can put the windows on that door. And then I think we're gonna call this one done. Okay, that is going to do it for our holiday doodle page. And again, you can break these up and do them as individual cards, as holiday tags. That you could, you know, even combine them and make do the pine tree that we did with the snow and have it with the cabin, and then even maybe put a wreath on the cabin, do a little bit bigger, put the snowman in there. Like, you could create a whole fun little like wintry scene with like the cabin, the snowman, the wreath, the tree. You could even add the lights onto the cabin. So I thought these were kind of fun because you can even create like your own scenes with them, mix and match, have fun with it. This is my way of saying thank you so much for an amazing year here at Mallery Jane. It's just been almost even hard to describe my gratitude and thankfulness that I get to do this for a living from my own home, to have the income to support my family, and to not be in the school systems, which is where I was for 7 years, and not being appreciated and dealing with so much hard things that are in the school systems because of the management happening. And I think they all do their best, but at the same time, it's a hard world for teachers. And so if you are a teacher, thank you so much. After 7 years, I could no longer do it, and I am so grateful that I now get to do this, and it is because of all of you. So thank you. Have a wonderful holiday season, a winter time, and I'll see you guys in the next video.